Hey guys. MGTOW is about more than just women. It is all about personal freedom and the ability to do what you want to do. This is why MGTOW fight against feminists and social justice warriors who constantly attack our ability to practice personal freedom. This is no different than the doctrine of Islam, which is slowly forcing people in Western cultures to conform to their beliefs or be called racist. Just like feminism, we must fight back against this lunacy as well. Gavin McInnes takes on this topic and says it how it is.
And welcome to the Independent. Is that Gavin's head? I wasn't sure if that was Gavin's head or Matt's hand reaching to the camera.
Stay tuned, folks, because this one has got a lot of good stuff to say.
That was awful. No, I refuse to be childish and immature. But I'm glad you're here on our After Hours show where we take the internet by storm and we no longer take your questions because we took phone calls one night and you were so creepy that we couldn't sleep for about a week.
So weird.
So now we're just talking amongst ourselves. And there's a lot to cover. I mean, between the Ukraine and the damn plane. Mm-hmm. Do you guys, you were watching in the green room as we were finishing the show. What do you think happened with the Malaysian
I was on
flight?
Hannity earlier saying that I want it to be Muslims. And I'm not necessarily proud of that desire, but it's a feeling, so you can't get mad at a feeling.
Because you want people to be mad at Muslims, like they're not mad enough?
I think they're pretty sleepy when it comes to the threat of Islam. And Michael Moore, you know, after the Boston bombing, he wanted them to be rednecks. He wanted a Timothy
So
McVeigh.
did David Axelrod. And they said,
Yes.
well, it's Patriots Day here in Boston, and you know what that means.
Yeah.
Salon.com.
So I'm sort of as guilty as them because I have the same feelings on the other side. But my threat is real. Their threat is some dude with a trucker hat going, blow it up.
Yeah.
Well, that did happen once, in fairness.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind
Well,
of
let's
happened.
list
Okay, but why,
those times.
why would it be,
and-
okay,
sure.
but I mean, the way I understand it, and this may be an overly simplistic view, Islam and Islamists, as Lou Dobbs, my friend, an office mate would call them, they tend to have a problem with the West. Why would they blow up a Chinese, a mostly Chinese-packed
Because
Malaysian
they're
flight
totally irrational.
going to Beijing?
And there's this myth that they hate us because of our foreign policy or something. They hate us because we're infidels, and the Quran says destroy all infidels. Who's harder on Muslims than Muslims? They're totally insatiable. I mean, you can have a burqa on in Saudi Arabia, and some guy's going to come up and go, really? Purple socks?
And
Are you kidding me?
You have the rifts within because, for instance, like Osama bin Laden wouldn't even go to horse races because the music was a violation of his moral compass, his moral code. So, you know, there's waging infidel against one another. So there's so many
You
factors
can't have a
within.
kitten calendar. Who knows what their beef with
That's
this
true.
plane was?
But they're so terrible.
Because God made those, and you're arrogant to think you can capture them with a photograph.
But I don't think either one of you believe, and I'm hoping that this is the case, that when something bad happens here or when Muslims are carrying out terrorist attacks, that stuff happens in a vacuum, that it's simply their philosophy, and that has nothing to do, as you were seemingly indicating, with U.S. foreign policy and the fact that we have bases in and we intervene in various places in the Middle East and we do all sorts of stuff that doesn't actually concern us, that we don't open ourselves up.
Why do they attack Glasgow? Why do they attack Vancouver?
I'm just wondering if you really think that sort of stuff occurs in a vacuum.
I do.
It does. Okay.
I think that foreign policy is a tiny fraction of their crazy inbred agenda.
I think you're trying
Inbred
to
agenda.
Yeah,
They're actually being inbred, and that is what there's some sort of genetic defect that is causing them to carry these attacks.
There's a huge problem with inbreeding in the Muslim community.
I find that such a bizarre argument. What percentage of Muslims or people from the Middle East are carrying out terrorist attacks?
Do you think
what a bizarre argument.
25%.
That doesn't even make any sense.
25% think suicide bombing is sometimes often justified.
Camille,
that's 250 million people.
Fair, I will rephrase two issues with what you have to say. Number one is you are applying rational thought to irrational behavior. All right, you are applying.
Actually, I haven't done that.
No, you are. You're saying that people are reacting to U.S. foreign policy.
I'm actually suggesting. I'm actually suggesting.
It's very irrational. It's a very irrational
suggesting
reaction.
that might be a part of what is happening.
It's almost like the bitch
here.
had to come in defense, which
that's not what I suggested at all. I'm only suggesting that it is a part of the overall calculus.
The other thing you
that
said
doesn't
is
seem
what is
absurd
the
either.
percentage of people in the Middle East who commit terrorist attacks? That's not what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is of the terrorist attacks that are committed, How many of those are committed by non-Muslims?
And that's fine too. But again, I would say that that's probably the wrong way to look at the problem. In the same sense, that it's the wrong way to look at the problem and say, oh, well, most of the violence in this country is committed by people who happen to be minorities. It is preposterous and idiotic to then suggest that there is something defective in those people that is creating the crime. No one would posit that particular argument. I would actually dare anyone at the table to do it.
But I don't think it's a genetic
component
because
there's another argument.
I think.
But that's actually what Gavin said.
Okay, but
so that's what I addressed.
I think I mean, Gavin, you're on a slippery slope because that does get pretty racist pretty quick.
It's apples and oranges. I don't have to jump there. I'm talking about inbreeding.
People say apples and oranges.
Muhammad said you can marry your first cousin. Yeah. That is not only a huge problem in Pakistan and throughout the Middle East. It's actually a problem in India because they do it to preserve the family money. Now, you do that once or twice, it's not great. You do that for 40 generations, and it starts dictating the behavior of an entire group of people. And out of Islam, all Muslims, I've seen studies that say about 25% think that suicide bombing is sometimes or often justified. That's a lot of people.
Can you find any other bizarre behavior that you could relate to inbreeding?
Oh,
that is happening.
If you look up inbreeding,
at a statistically disproportionate,
totally mirror extremist Islam.
Yeah, I'm talking.
Well, how about violent behavior?
How about specifically amongst this population, more broadly? Because even if you can say that some percentage of those people support this behavior, we're still talking about a minority of people who fit these characteristics.
Huge birth defect problems, huge health problems. Even the Muslims in Britain are having incredible genetic problems from this, diseases.
No, I think you both are entirely off base. I think what Kennedy said, I think you're trying to apply rational thought to rational behavior.
I'm not doing that.
I think probably one of the best characterizations of this.
I've done it ably.
Okay, but here's the other thing that, to speak to your point. What about, people like John What's-His-Fart, who converted to Islam in this country is a form...
Walker Lind, yeah.
Yeah, John Walker Lind. Yeah, people who convert to Islam as a form, like the most extreme form of rebellion. I mean, it's really not too dissimilar from what Chris McCandless did, hiking into the Alaskan wilderness and dying of starvation after however many.
It's also not too dissimilar from the radical anarchists.
There are people who, are not inbred. They are not Middle Eastern. They are whitey birds or from other parts of the world who don't share whatever genetic components or.
Of course, we're talking about a billion people. I'm talking about a general pattern. Of course, there's John Walker Lind and people who mimic this extremist behavior because they're extreme.
Well, philosophical radicalism can manifest itself in very violent ways. We've actually seen this in this country before. This very country with the anarchists of the 1920s that era who were blowing themselves up. Not in Wall Street, mind you. That was one of the... For a number of years, I'm telling you that there was an ideology that bound a bunch of people together. They actually migrated to this ideology, as John Walker Lind did, and they were carrying out attacks. This thing can actually fuel and breed itself and feed upon itself.
I'm talking about hundreds of millions of people.
But again, it's not an inherent defect.
If we want an explanation, I think there were a lot of seeds to truth. Samuel Huntington, Clash of Civilizations. We are seeing Western values conflicting with extreme radicalism. There are seeds of extreme radicalism, not in most Muslims, absolutely not, but in a certain sect, and that's what we're seeing. It's a clash of civilizations.
And that much I'm willing to accept, that there is a fundamentally defective philosophy that's being advanced amongst some people. But what I was confronting originally was, Gavin, frankly, the point that you made. There's a huge genetic
component to this, too.
Yeah, I think that's not...
That doesn't mean you have to apply eugenics to every single problem in the world.
Well, eugenics is bad science, so I'm glad that you wouldn't do that.
But we can say inbreeding is bad, and if it makes you feel more comfortable,
I'm willing to take a stand against inbreeding with you right now.
And Muslims saying that, no, you can't marry your first cousin. This is causing serious diseases. It's causing all kinds of health problems, and it's making a big portion of us nuts.
But it also sounds irrational and racist when it's not backed up with concrete scientific evidence.
The inbreeding thing, I can back up with so much evidence that it would be like you'd rather read the Obamacare 1,500-page report.
I think it's so much more cultural than anything else, and that Islam hasn't gone through its reformation. We are not just the biggest target on the block, but we're the biggest target in the history.
The problem with that...
No, wait, I'm fine. I'm fine here. The problem is you've been talking for the last 8 minutes. No, this is, I agree with you, the primary source of terrorism happening right now, and has been for the last 20 years, 25 years, and it's something to be, and you should be able to confront that with open eyes and be fine with it. Also, blowback, I think, does play a role as well. The Defense Science Board, which studies this crap for the U.S. government under Cheney and Bush, who are the last people in the world to admit this kind of stuff, had a whole thing about blowback and its role in these kind of things. When you put yourself forward as the biggest kid on the block with all of these armaments and you're getting in people's business for good and for ill, for Muslims and against Muslims, people are just going to fixate on you regardless of whether you're guilty or you're innocent of the crimes that they accuse you of committing.
The problem with that argument is a picture of Iran in 1960. There's a woman in a miniskirt in a lab studying chemistry. There's another beautiful lady driving a car. They are the only culture that has gone backwards in time. So to say these are just growing pains.
The Chinese did it as well when they went to a centralized form of government.
Of their society.
Have you seen Hiroshima
do you think it had anything to do with it?
They look
Are you
like
familiar with the Shah of Iran?
Do you think U.S. foreign policy?
I'm just saying, Gavin.
Do you think attacks wouldn't be happening if it weren't for U.S. foreign policy? Because
honestly, I couldn't go back in time and give you that sort of theory. What I can say, however, is that foreign policy obviously contributes to some of this, and anyone who wants to suggest, like hawks do, who are concerned about the budget being diminished in some insignificant way, that we are somehow not contributing to some of this, is ridiculous.
No one's saying that. I'm saying that we're ignoring.
I don't think U.S. foreign policy is to blame at all in this light. No, I don't.
Good.
I think
come on.
I think you can take out the word blame. You could say that are people at all motivated by that? In some way?
Yeah, I think it's inappropriate to say that U.S. foreign policy causes extreme Islamist.
I think U.S. foreign policy has done a lot of good for the Muslim people. I think Bush liberated 50 million Muslims from the hands of dictators. So to suggest
I don't know that U.S. foreign policy has done a great deal to make the Middle East that much peacer. When I look
I think
at
the world's a better place
when I look at what
his own people.
I don't know that what we're doing in the Middle East right now and what we've done over the past 20 to 30 years has actually made the Middle East a better and safer place. I'm not sure about that.
I don't think we should go around fixing countries. I think
there's a great deal of evidence that we haven't.
I think democracy building has very evidently not worked. We can't build a country's democracy if they're not receptive to it. But I do think the world's a better place without Saddam Hussein gassing the Kurds.
Yeah, a guy who used to be our friend. So I mean, how was he gassing?
Yeah, our foreign policy is
what weapons was he using in some instances?
That doesn't make us responsible.
And we're not going to be able to solve it all tonight, Gavin.
We will if we do an all-nighter. Let's do an all-nighter.
Let's get our jammies and just yap all night long. That'll be fun. I'll see you guys in the morning. I'm going to go to Sleepy Pie while these guys sit and talk about it.